The millionaire saw his employee on the floor holding her young son in her arms. The boy was barely breathing. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, but from something he had never seen. Knowledge, precision, absolute certainty. "Your son is dying," she said with a firm voice, and in that instant everything changed. Because sometimes truth does not arrive wearing a suit. It arrives in a grey uniform and hands that know how to see the invisible. Like this, if it touched your soul. It is more than a click. It is a silent hug. Comment how you think this story is going to end, and if you have not subscribed yet, it costs you nothing, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you for being here. The alarm clock rang at 4:30 in the morning, but Mary was already awake. She always was, as if her body had learned that deep sleep was a luxury that no longer belonged to her. She got up in the dim light of the shared apartment in Queens, where 3 women divided the rent and broken dreams. The bathroom mirror reflected a 34-year-old woman who looked 40, deep dark circles, hands cracked by bleach, hair tied in the same low ponytail as always. Grey uniform, worn shoes, bag with a sandwich wrapped in aluminum foil. 2 buses and a subway later, Mary arrived in the Hamptons when the sun was just beginning to draw golden lines over the mansions. The guard checked her like every morning, with that mix of routine and disdain used by those who watch the borders between worlds. Documentation. Never good morning. Never her name. The Miller house was a palace of white marble, immense glass, and expensive silence. Mary entered through the back door, as they had told her on the first day. "The main entrance is for the family and guests," Sarah had told her with a smile that did not reach her eyes. It was 6 in the morning. The house slept, but Mary was already working. At 8, when the sun flooded the designer kitchen, Robert Miller came down the stairs talking on the phone. Impeccable dark suit, watch that cost more than a year of Mary's salary, deep voice giving orders about mergers and acquisitions. He did not look at her. He never did. Sarah appeared minutes later, perfect even in brand-name sportswear. She took her coffee without sugar and called someone. "The maid is here," she said to the phone, looking toward where Mary was cleaning the windows. Not Mary, not the girl who works here, only the maid, as if it were a category, not a person. Mary squeezed the cloth. She breathed. She kept cleaning. 3 years doing this, 3 years being invisible. But something in her had never fully given up. It was something small, buried under layers of humiliation and tiredness. It was the memory of what she was. Mary Smith, senior nursing technician specialized in neonatal intensive care at Johns Hopkins Hospital. 10 years saving lives that fit in the palm of a hand. 10 years of mornings in the ICU, monitors beeping, families crying, babies fighting, until a lie destroyed everything. A false accusation of negligence that was never proven, but also did not need to be proven. The scandal was enough. The temporary suspension became permanent. The doors closed. And Mary, who had dedicated her life to caring, ended up cleaning the floors where others lived. "Mary," Sarah's voice took her out of her thoughts. "The master bathroom needs more attention, and be careful with the products. Last time you left marks on the marble." "Yes, ma'am." "And another thing, the baby is with the nanny upstairs. Don't enter without warning. I don't want you to wake him with the vacuum noise." "Of course, ma'am." Sarah left without waiting for an answer. For her, Mary was part of the furniture. But while she went up the stairs with the cleaning bucket, Mary heard something that stopped her cold. A cry. Not just any cry. It was a sharp, broken, desperate sound. The kind of cry that any mother could confuse with hunger or colic. But Mary was not just anyone, and that cry made her skin crawl. Something was not right. The crying did not stop. Mary left the bucket in the hallway and approached the baby's room with care. The door was half open. Inside, the nanny, a girl from Eastern Europe barely 20 years old, rocked Liam with an exhausted expression. "He doesn't stop," the nanny whispered in broken English. "He cries all the time. I don't know what to do." Mary peeked in slightly. The baby was 8 months old, red cheeks, closed fists. He cried with his mouth open, arching his back, as if something hurt from inside. His little eyes moved in a strange way without focusing, looking for something they could not find. Mary felt a chill. She knew that pattern. "How long has he been crying like this?" she asked softly. The nanny looked at her surprised. No one asked the cleaning maid anything. 3 days. 4, maybe. The doctor said it is colic, that it is normal. It is not normal, Mary thought. None of this is normal. But before she could say anything else, Robert's voice thundered from the hallway. "Why is that child still crying? Jesus, can't you do something?" He entered the room like a storm, tie loosened, phone in one hand, frustration in every gesture. He took the baby from the nanny's arms and held him clumsily, like someone carrying a fragile package he does not know how to open. "This crying is driving me crazy," he said, looking at the child like a bothersome enigma. "It is not normal for a child to cry so much." Mary took a step forward without thinking. "Excuse me, sir." Robert turned toward her with an expression of surprise and irritation. "What are you doing here?" "The baby," Mary began, choosing words carefully. "That kind of cry is not... You were hired to clean, not to give opinions about my son." Silence fell like a stone. Mary lowered her gaze. She pressed her lips. She nodded. "Sorry, sir." She left the room with the bucket in her hand, feeling how anger and helplessness mixed in her chest. She knew what she saw. She knew what it meant. But no one would listen. For them, she was just the woman who cleaned the bathrooms. The rest of the morning passed in tension. Mary cleaned in silence, but her mind kept returning to the baby's cry, to the movements of his eyes, to the stiffness of his little body. Hydrocephalus, she thought. Intracranial pressure, maybe an obstruction in the aqueduct. He needs studies. He needs urgent attention. But who would believe her? At noon, while she prepared her sandwich in the service kitchen, she heard Sarah talking on the phone in the living room. "Yes, Mom, we already took him to the pediatrician 3 times. Dr. Miller says they are normal colics, that they will pass. No, I don't think he needs a specialist. He is the best in New York. We are not going to doubt him because of a simple cry." "Oh, Mom, all babies cry. It's not a big deal." Mary closed her eyes. "It is a big deal," she wanted to scream. "It is much more than a big deal." But she swallowed the words with a sip of water and went back to her tasks. That afternoon, while she vacuumed in the main hall, she saw Robert sitting in his office with the door open. He was talking on a video call, gesturing with confidence. In his world, he was the one who decided, the one who knew, the one who ruled. He ran a pharmaceutical company with thousands of employees. He moved millions. He saved lives according to articles in business magazines. But he could not see what was in front of him. Mary turned off the vacuum and went out to the garden to empty a trash bag. The fresh air did her good. She sat for a moment on the back step, where no one would see her. She took out her old phone and searched the internet. Hydrocephalus baby symptoms. Every word she read confirmed her suspicions. Sharp and inconsolable crying. Abnormal eye movements. Bulging fontanelle. Stiffness. Extreme irritability. He has it, she thought. That baby has it. But what could she do? If she spoke, they would fire her. If she kept quiet, the child would get worse. The sun was beginning to set when Mary finished her day. She changed her uniform for her street clothes and left through the back door. She did not say goodbye to anyone. No one said goodbye to her. On the bus back, she rested her head against the glass and let the tears fall in silence. She had sworn to save lives. And now she was trapped between fear and the truth. Thursday dawned grey. Mary arrived at the Miller's house at the same time as always, but with a decision made. She would speak, no matter the cost. She could not stay silent and let a child suffer for someone else's pride. But when she entered, the house was in chaos. Sarah ran through the hallway with the phone to her ear, hysterical voice. "I don't know what he has. He keeps crying. I don't know what to do anymore." Robert was in the kitchen, the baby in his arms, walking from one side to the other. Liam cried with a weaker sound than the previous days, but more worrying, as if he no longer had strength. "Good morning," Mary said, leaving her bag. No one answered. She put on her uniform and began her tasks, but every fibre of her body was alert. Something was going to happen. She felt it. In the middle of the morning, While cleaning the second-floor bathroom, she heard hurried steps. The nanny went down the stairs, talking on the phone in her language, nervous voice. Seconds later, she went up again with a towel. Mary left the cloth and went out to the hallway. Something was not right. And then she heard it. A dry thud, an impact, followed by a terrible silence, and then a weak, broken, distant cry. Mary ran. The baby's room door was open. The nanny was paralyzed, hands over her mouth, looking at the floor. Liam was on the floor on the rug. He had fallen from the changing table. "Oh, God! Oh, God!" the nanny repeated. "I only went to the bathroom for a second. 1 second." Mary did not think. Her body acted before her mind. She knelt next to the baby, firm hands, evaluating eyes. She touched his little head with extreme care, looking for fractures, bruises. The baby cried, but it was a muffled cry, without strength. And then Mary saw what she feared. The fontanelle, that soft spot on babies' heads, was tense, bulging, pulsing under her hand like a drum about to burst. The baby's eyes moved without control, nystagmus. His legs were stiff. Breathing was irregular. It's not just the fall, Mary thought. It's what was already there. The fall only made it worse. What happened here? Robert's voice entered like thunder. He stood at the door, red with fury, and seeing Mary holding his son, he exploded. "What are you doing with my son?" Mary did not move. She looked at Robert with a calm that was not indifference but the absolute control of someone trained for emergencies. "Mr. Miller," she said with a firm but serene voice, "your son has acute hydrocephalus." The world seemed to stop. "What did you say?" Robert asked, incredulous. "The fontanelle is under intracranial pressure," Mary continued without looking away. "He needs emergency neurosurgery. Now." Robert moved toward her, but something in Mary's posture, in her confidence, stopped him. "How do you dare? You are just the maid." "Liam is not crying because of colic," Mary said, her voice rising just one tone. "This is neurological pain. The eye movements are nystagmus. The stiffness in the legs the nanny mentioned is not a tantrum, it is a symptom. Sir, every minute increases the risk of permanent brain damage, or worse." The word floated in the air like a sentence. Robert turned pale. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Sarah ran in, saw the scene, and screamed, "What is going on here?" Mary stood up with the baby in her arms, holding him as if he were the most fragile thing in the world. "Your son needs a hospital, now, not in an hour. Now." "Dr. Adams is one of the best pediatricians in New York," Robert said, but his voice no longer had the same conviction. "He told us that—" "He was wrong," Mary interrupted, "because he did not examine him well. Because you said he was fussy. I was a nursing technician for 10 years, specialized in neonatal ICU at Johns Hopkins. I lost my license because of a false accusation that was never proven, but I didn't lose what I know how to see. And what I am seeing is that your son is dying." The silence was absolute. Mary extended her arms, offering the baby to Robert. "Take him, or call an ambulance. But do it now." For the first time in 3 years, Robert really looked at her. He saw her firm hands, her clear eyes, her confident posture, and something inside him broke. "Sarah," he shouted, his voice breaking, "call the hospital and get the car ready, now." Mary handed him the baby with care, showing him how to hold the head, how to avoid sudden movements. "At the hospital, ask for an urgent CT scan," she said. "Say you suspect obstructive hydrocephalus. Don't let them make you wait." Robert nodded, dazed, and while they ran toward the garage, Mary stayed in the room shaking for the first time. She had become a nurse again, even if only for an instant. The house went silent. The nanny cried sitting in the hallway, repeating through sobs that she had only gone to the bathroom for a second, that the baby was safe on the changing table, that she never thought he could fall. Mary said nothing. There was nothing to say. The accident had already happened, and now there was only waiting. She sat on the stairs, her hands still shaking. It had been so automatic, so instinctive. Her fingers had evaluated without thinking. Her mind had diagnosed without doubting. As if the 3 years of cleaning floors had not existed. As if her body remembered what her life had forgotten. An hour passed. 2. Mary continued with her tasks, but every movement was mechanical. She vacuumed without seeing. She cleaned without feeling. Her mind was at the hospital, with a baby she barely knew but whom she had touched with all the delicacy in the world. At 3 in the afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Mary, it's Robert Miller. His voice sounded different, broken, human. How is the baby? She asked, her heart racing. They are operating on him. There was a long pause. You were right. Acute hydrocephalus, stenosis of the cerebral aqueduct. The neurosurgeon said that if we had waited 2 more hours, the damage would have been irreversible. Mary closed her eyes. She felt the air leave her lungs as if she had been holding it for days. I am glad they treated him in time. Mary, Robert's voice broke. Why didn't you say anything before? She let out a bitter laugh. I tried, Mr. Miller. You told me I was hired to clean, not to give opinions. The silence on the other side was crushing. I'm sorry, he finally said, for not listening to you, for treating you like you were invisible. Mary did not know what to answer. The apologies of the powerful always arrived late. It only matters that Liam is okay, she said. When he gets out of surgery, could you come? The doctor wants to talk to you. He wants to know how you detected it. Mary looked around her. The empty house, the vacuum in the middle of the hallway, her grey uniform. I don't know if I should. Please. That word, said by Robert Miller, sounded strange, as if he did not know how to pronounce it well. Okay, I'm coming. 2 hours later, Mary entered the New York Presbyterian Hospital. The automatic doors, the smell of disinfectant, the white hallways, everything was painfully familiar. She had worked in hospitals like this. She had saved lives in rooms like those, and then she had lost everything. She found Robert and Sarah in the neurosurgery waiting room. He had his tie loosened, deep dark circles, hands interlaced. She cried in silence, makeup smudged, all her perfection turned to pieces. Seeing Mary, Robert stood up. Thank you for coming. Sarah also stood up. For the first time, she really looked at Mary. You saved my son, she said with a broken voice. I didn't know. I didn't know who you were. It doesn't matter who I am, Mary answered softly. It only matters that Liam is okay. A tall doctor in a white coat and serious expression came out of the surgery doors. He had that air of quiet authority that only years of life or death decisions give. Miller family. Everyone approached. The surgery was successful, he said. We placed a ventriculoperitoneal shunt. The cerebrospinal fluid is draining correctly. Liam is stable. Sarah collapsed in Robert's arms, sobbing. Is he going to recover? Robert asked. Completely, but you must understand something. The doctor looked at them with seriousness. If you had waited longer, we would have been talking about permanent brain damage, maybe blindness, maybe severe delay, or worse. Who detected the symptoms first? Robert looked at Mary. She did. Mary. The doctor turned toward her, evaluating her. Mary felt his professional gaze, the one that classifies and recognizes. Are you a doctor? I was a senior nursing technician, neonatal ICU, at Johns Hopkins. The doctor's face changed, a flash of recognition. Mary Smith? She tensed. That name, said in a hospital, always brought the shadow of the scandal. Yes. I worked with you years ago. A rotation at Hopkins. You were one of the best. He paused. And I also know what happened to you. An injustice. Mary felt a lump in her throat. The past doesn't matter anymore. Yes, it matters, the doctor said, because the knowledge that saved this child today is not learned by cleaning floors. It is learned by saving lives. And you clearly never forgot it. He turned around and went back to the surgery room, leaving everyone in silence. Robert approached Mary. For the first time, he looked at her without the barrier of employer and employee. He looked at her like a father looks at the person who saved his son. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," Mary said. "Just take good care of Liam." She turned to leave, but Sarah's voice stopped her. "Mary, wait." She turned. Sarah's eyes were red, but there was determination in her gaze. "Forgive me for everything, for calling you the maid, for not seeing you, for not listening to you." "Mum, Sarah. Call me Sarah." Mary nodded, not knowing what else to say. "When Liam gets out of the hospital," Robert said, "I want to talk to you seriously about your future, about what happened at Hopkins, and about how I can help." Mary smiled sadly. "I don't need charity, Mr. Miller." "It's not charity. It's justice." That night, Mary returned to her apartment in Queens when it was already early morning. Her roommates were sleeping. She sat in the small kitchen with a cup of cold tea and let the tears finally come out. She had saved a life. After 3 years of being invisible, she mattered again. But the question that haunted her was, why did something like this have to happen for someone to see her? Liam stayed in the hospital 5 days. Mary did not go back to the Miller's house during that time. She had asked for a few days off, which they granted without questions. She needed distance. She needed to process what had happened without the gazes, without the tension of being the maid again after having been, even for a moment, the savior. She spent those days walking through New York, checking old nursing books she kept in a box under her bed, timidly contacting old colleagues who still answered her messages. Some had erased her from their lives when the scandal broke. Others simply did not know what to say to her. But there was a call that changed something. "Mary? It's Ellen. Ellen Vance." Ellen had been her supervisor at Hopkins, a 50-year-old woman, efficient and fair, who had always defended her team. "Ellen, I didn't expect your call. I heard what you did. The Miller baby. It's all over the hospital. There are doctors talking about you." Mary felt a chill. "Talking good or bad?" "Good, Mary." "Very good. They say you detected acute hydrocephalus just by observing the child, that you saved his life. And many of us remember that you were always exceptional in differential diagnoses." She paused. "I want you to know something. I never believed that accusation against you. None of us who really knew you believed it." Mary closed her eyes, feeling how something old and heavy began to loosen in her chest. "Then why didn't anyone say anything?" "Because the patient's family had powerful lawyers, and because the hospital preferred to sacrifice you than risk a media trial. It was cowardice, Mary, and it was unfair. It doesn't matter anymore." "Yes, it matters, because you are too good to be cleaning floors." When she hung up, Mary sat on the edge of her bed and cried, not from sadness, but from something like relief. Someone remembered. Someone knew. The following Monday, Mary returned to the Miller's house. She rang the front doorbell, not the back one, because something told her things had changed. The person who opened was Robert. He had Liam in his arms, the baby smiling, with a small bandage on his head but awake and curious. "Mary, come in, please." He took her to the main living room, the one Mary had only cleaned, never lived in. Sarah was there, sitting on the sofa, and she stood up when she saw her. "Thank you for coming," she said. Mary sat where they indicated, feeling strange in that space. Robert left the baby on a playmat and sat in front of her. "I want to be direct," he said. "I have investigated your case. The Hopkins thing." Mary tensed. "I didn't talk to lawyers. I talked to people who knew you. With nurses, doctors. Everyone says the same, that you were brilliant, that the accusation never made sense, and that the hospital let you fall to protect its image." "That was 3 years ago," Mary said. "Nothing can be done anymore." "Yes, it can," Sarah interrupted. "Robert talked to his lawyers. The accusation never legally progressed. There was never a trial, only an internal investigation that suspended you without a solid basis. Technically, you could request a review of your case." "For what?" Mary asked with tiredness. "My reputation is already destroyed. No hospital would hire me." Robert leaned forward. "My company, Miller Pharma, has agreements with several hospitals. And beyond that, I have a project. Something I've been thinking about for months but didn't know how to implement. Until now. Mary looked at him without understanding. There are thousands of health professionals in the US, Robert continued, who are out of the system for unfair reasons, personal crises, unfounded accusations, lack of opportunities, and meanwhile, hospitals have a shortage of qualified personnel. It's an absurd waste. What do you propose? Mary asked. That you lead a professional reintegration program, training, updates, mediation with hospitals. Give a second chance to those who, like you, should never have lost it. Mary blinked. Me? Lead a program? Yes. You know what it is to fall. You know what it is to lose everything. No one better than you to understand those in that situation. But I don't have credentials for that. I barely finished high school before being a technician. I didn't study management or human resources or... You don't need a university degree to have moral authority, Sarah said. And we can give you the training you need. What cannot be taught is empathy, and you have that. Mary felt something strange in her chest, something like hope, but heavier, more real. Why would you do this for me? Robert looked at his son, who was babbling happily on his mat. Because if it weren't for you, Liam would be dead or disabled. Because we treated you like trash and you saved us anyway. And because I have to live with that. This is my way of trying to live up to what you did. Mary stayed in silence for a long time. Then she spoke with a trembling voice. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need, Robert said. But please, think about it seriously. Leaving the house, Mary did not take the bus immediately. She walked through the Hampton streets, looking at the mansions, the perfect gardens, the lives of others. And for the first time in 3 years, she did not feel envy or resentment. She felt that maybe, just maybe, her life could have meaning again. A week passed before Mary contacted Robert again. A week of sleepless nights, of conversations with Ellen, of checking every angle of the offer as if it were a trap. Because in her experience, good things did not arrive like this. Not to people like her. But something stronger pushed her, something that had been asleep for 3 years, and that Liam's cry had awakened, the desire to matter, to be useful, to use her hands again for something more than cleaning. The meeting was at the Miller Farmer Central Offices, a glass and steel building in Manhattan. Mary arrived half an hour early, dressed in the best she had, black pants ironed with care, and a white blouse she had bought on sale years ago. She sat in the reception, surrounded by executives with expensive suits and leather briefcases, feeling completely out of place. Mary Smith? A young woman with a folder and headset approached with a professional smile. Yes. Mr. Miller is waiting for you. Please follow me. They went up to the 12th floor. The woman guided her through bright hallways to a meeting room with views of the city. Robert was there, but not alone. There were 3 other people. An older man in a grey suit, a woman in her 40s with glasses and a serious expression, and a young man with a tablet. Mary, come in, Robert said, getting up. This is our Director of Human Resources, Mark Davis, Clara Vance, our Director of Corporate Social Responsibility, and James, our Project Assistant. Everyone greeted her with courtesy. Mary shook hands, trying not to show how nervous she was. Sit down, please, Robert said. We want to explain to you in detail what we have in mind. Clara spoke. She had a firm, direct voice of someone accustomed to leading. The program would be called Healthcare Bridge. The idea is to identify health professionals, nurses, technicians, assistants, who are out of the labor market due to adverse circumstances. We will offer them updated training, legal support if they need it, and connection with hospitals and clinics that need personnel. And what exactly would I do? Mary asked. Coordinate, Robert answered. You would be the link between the professionals and the institutions. You would evaluate cases, design reintegration plans, and represent the program before hospitals and health authorities. But I don't have management studies. You will have training, Mark Davis said, and you will have a team. You won't be alone. What we need from you is not that you know about organizational charts. We need you to understand the people we want to help, because you are one of them." Mary took a deep breath. "And my legal situation, the Hopkins thing. If I represent this program, if my name appears, someone is going to investigate. They are going to find the suspension, the accusation." "We already talked to lawyers," Clara said. "The accusation was never proven. There was never a sentence. And we have testimonies from colleagues of yours ready to back your professional competence. If someone tries to use your past against you, we will be prepared. Besides," Robert added, "your story is exactly what this program needs. You are not going to hide it. You're going to use it. You're going to demonstrate that people can fall due to injustices and still be valuable. You are the living proof of what we want to achieve." Mary felt a lump in her throat. For 3 years she had lived with shame, as if she were guilty of something she never did. And now someone was telling her that her pain could be useful, that her fall could be a bridge for others. "When would it start?" Robert smiled. "When you say you are ready." That afternoon, Mary quit her job as a domestic worker. The agency that had placed her in the miller's house barely gave it importance. Just another woman on the rotation list. 2 weeks later, Mary entered her office at Miller Farmer for the first time. It was small, with a window looking into an internal courtyard, a functional desk and a new computer. There was a plaque on the door. Mary Smith, Healthcare Bridge Program Coordinator. She sat in the chair, touched the desk with her fingertips, and let the tears fall. Tears of fear, of disbelief, but also of something she had forgotten, the possibility of a different future. James, the assistant, knocked on the door. "Mary, we have the first list of candidates to review. When do you want to start?" Mary wiped her tears, took a deep breath and smiled. "Now. Let's start now." The first meeting of the program was in a room borrowed from a community center in the Bronx. Mary had insisted it be there and not in the Miller Farmer offices. She wanted the candidates to feel comfortable, not intimidated. 17 people arrived, men and women of all ages, some with worn clinical uniforms, as if they had no other clothes. Others with suits that no longer fit well, like memories of a professional life they had lost. Mary received them at the door, shaking every hand, looking at every face. "Thank you for coming. I know it is difficult to take this step." A woman about 50 years old with grey hair tied back and tired eyes approached. "Is it true that this is not a scam?" she asked with distrust. "Because they have promised us things before." "It is true," Mary answered. "And if at any moment you feel we are not fulfilling, you can leave. No questions, no grudges." The woman looked at her for a long time, searching for signs of a lie. She found none. Mary began the meeting by introducing herself, not as a coordinator, but as what she was. "My name is Mary Smith. 3 years ago I worked in the neonatal ICU at Hopkins. I loved my job. I was good at it. But a family accused me of negligence in the death of their baby. Nothing was ever proven. There was never a trial. But the hospital suspended me to protect its image. I lost my license, I lost my reputation, and for 3 years I cleaned houses to survive." The silence was absolute. Some people had tears in their eyes. "I am here because someone gave me a second chance, and this program exists to give you the same opportunity. Not because we are charitable, but because it is fair, and because the health system needs people like you." An older man raised his hand. He had trembling hands and a broken voice. "I was an anesthesiologist, 30 years of career, until my wife died and I fell into depression. I missed too many days. They fired me. Now no one hires me because I have a history of instability. I am 62 years old. What hospital is going to want someone like me?" Mary looked at him with gentleness. One that values experience, and one that understands that personal crises do not erase decades of knowledge. "We are going to help you update your training, and we are going to find a place where your experience matters." A young woman, no more than 25 years old, spoke with shyness. "I graduated as a nursing technician 2 years ago, but I got pregnant in my first job and they fired me. They said they couldn't afford to have someone unreliable. Since then, no one has even given me an interview. I have an 8-month-old baby. I need to work, but no one trusts me." Mary felt a sting. 8 months, like Liam. "We are going to change that," she said. "Not because it is easy, but because we are not going to give up on you." During the following weeks, Mary worked 18 hours a day. She reviewed files, she called hospitals, she negotiated with skeptical human resources directors. She argued, persuaded, sometimes begged. Most doors closed. "We don't have a budget. We can't take risks. We prefer people without complications." But some doors opened. A small hospital in New Jersey accepted 3 candidates for a paid internship program. A clinic in Brooklyn hired the young mother who had been fired. The older anesthesiologist found a position in an outpatient surgery center. They were not big victories, but they were victories. And every time Mary saw someone wear a clinical uniform again, every time she received a message saying, "I started today, thank you," she felt something inside her repair itself. But there were also failures. One candidate rejected an offer because the salary was too low. Another did not show up for the interview because her partner told her it wasn't worth trying. An older man gave up after 3 rejections and stopped answering calls. Mary learned that she could not save everyone, that some wounds were too deep, that hope was fragile, but she kept trying. One afternoon, Robert entered her office without warning. He had a folder in his hand and a serious expression. "I need to show you something." He opened the folder. They were press clippings, medical blog articles, mentions on social media. "The program is drawing attention," he said. "There are media outlets asking for interviews. Medical associations want to know more. Even the Department of Health has contacted us." Mary felt a lump in her stomach. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "No one is ever ready," Robert said. "But if you want this to grow, if you want to help more people, we have to make it visible." Mary looked through the window. The internal courtyard where employees took coffee on their breaks. Normal people doing normal things. "Okay," she finally said, "but on one condition." "Which one?" "That in every interview, in every presentation, we talk about them. About the professionals we are helping, not about me, not about the program as if we were heroes. We talk about those who really matter." Robert smiled. "Deal." That night, Mary returned to her apartment in Queens. Her roommates received her with dinner and hugs. They had prepared chicken and rice, modest but made with love. "How is your project for rich people going?" one of them asked, with a mocking but affectionate tone. Mary smiled. "It's going. Slow. But it's going." They sat down to eat together, as always. And Mary realized that although her life was changing, there were things she did not want to lose. Humility. Closeness with those who suffered. The memory of where she came from. Because only those who have really fallen know how to help others get up. The first interview was for a medical radio show. Mary arrived at the studio with damp hands and a dry mouth. James accompanied her, giving her encouragement. "Just be yourself," he told her. "Tell the truth." The journalist was a man about 50 years old, with a deep voice and skeptical attitude. He had seen too many corporate projects sold as charity to believe easily. "Mary Smith, welcome. Tell us about the Healthcare Bridge program. Is this corporate marketing or are you really helping someone?" Mary took a deep breath. "It is real. We have been operating for 3 months. We have reintegrated 22 health professionals into hospitals and clinics, not all with permanent contracts, some in internships, but all working. And you, what qualifies you to lead this? I understand you were suspended from your job as a nurse." The question fell like a punch. Mary felt the urge to defend herself, to explain, to justify. But she remembered Robert's words. "Your story is your authority." "It's true," she said calmly. "I was suspended because of an accusation that was never proven. I spent 3 years cleaning houses. And precisely because of that, I know what the people we help feel. I know what it is to have knowledge and not be able to use it. I know what it is to be invisible. And I know that many of the most capable professionals are out of the system for reasons that have nothing to do with their competence." The journalist paused. Then he changed the tone. "How did you convince hospitals to hire people with complicated histories?" "I didn't convince them," Mary answered. "I showed them. I took candidates to interviews. I showed files. I presented testimonies. And when the hospitals saw the quality of the people we had, some decided to take a risk, not out of kindness, but because they need staff and we offer them qualified professionals. The interview lasted 20 minutes. When it finished, Mary left exhausted but relieved. James gave her a hug. "You did it perfect." But the reactions were mixed. The next day, the program received dozens of emails, some of support, health professionals telling their own stories of injustice, hospitals asking how to collaborate. But there were also harsh criticisms. Doctors who said they were lowering the standards of the profession, people who questioned if it was safe to hire people with problems. Mary read every message. Those of support encouraged her. Those of criticism hurt her. One afternoon, while reviewing emails, one stopped her cold. The sender was Dr. Monica Sterling. The name hit her like a ghost. Monica Sterling had been the head doctor of the neonatal ICU at Hopkins when the incident occurred. She had been the one who signed Mary's suspension. She opened the email with trembling hands. "Dear Mary, I have followed your work with the Healthcare Bridge program. I am glad you have found a path. I always knew you were an exceptional professional. I deeply regret my role in what happened to you. The institutional pressure was immense and I made the easy decision, not the correct one. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I never doubted your integrity. If one day I can help you in any way, I will be available. With respect, Dr. Monica Sterling." Mary read the email 3 times. She felt anger, she felt sadness, but she also felt something like closure. It was not a complete apology. It did not erase what happened, but it was a recognition. She answered that same afternoon. "Dr. Sterling, thank you for your message. I hold no grudge. I understand you were in a difficult position. What happened to me taught me something, that the system often fails those who most need protection, and now I work to change that. If there is ever something concrete I can collaborate on, I will gladly do it. Regards, Mary Smith." She pressed send before she could regret it. That week, Mary visited the hospital in New Jersey, where 3 of her candidates were doing internships. She wanted to see with her own eyes how they were doing. She found them in the nursing room, uniformed, concentrated. One of them, Patricia, looked up and smiled when she saw her. "Mary, I didn't expect to see you here. I came to see how things are going." "Good. Very good." Patricia had bright eyes. "It's been 4 years since I put on this uniform. I thought I would never do it again." The shift supervisor approached. "Are you Mary Smith?" "Yes." "I wanted to thank you. Patricia is excellent. I wish all the candidates you sent us were this prepared." Mary smiled. She was always excellent. She just needed someone to let her prove it. Returning to New York, Mary received a call from Clara Vance. "I need you to come to the office. We have an important proposal." When she arrived, she found Clara, Robert, and 2 people she did not know, a man in a suit with an air of an official and an elegant woman with folders. "Mary, this is Dr. Stephen Taylor from the Department of Health, and Isabel Romero, representative of the Private Hospital Association." Mary shook hands, confused. "We have been reviewing the results of the program," Dr. Taylor said, "and we believe it could be scaled. The department would be interested in co-funding a national expansion." Mary blinked. "National? And private hospitals want to participate," Isabel added. "We have a staff deficit. If your program can guarantee qualified professionals, we are interested in collaborating." Robert smiled, but did not speak. This belonged to Mary. It's a lot," she said. "I don't know if we are prepared to grow that fast. That's why we want to help you structure better," Dr. Taylor said. "With public funds, more staff, infrastructure, this could change lives on a national scale." Mary looked at Robert. He nodded slightly, giving her permission to decide. "I need to think about it," she said. "But if we do it, it has to be the right way, without losing human contact, without turning into a bureaucracy that processes people as if they were numbers." "Exactly why we want you to lead this," Isabel said, "because you understand what is at stake." That night, Mary did not sleep. She walked through her neighborhood, looking at the lit windows, thinking of all the lives that could change, but also of the risk of losing the essential. The next day, she called all the professionals who had passed through the program. 22 people filled the room. "I need your opinion," she said. "They have proposed expanding the program nationwide. We could help thousands, but we could also lose what makes us special, the close treatment, the individual attention. What do you think?" Patricia spoke first. "I think we should do it, because if they help me, why not help others? But only if you stay at the head, because I trust you." Others nodded. The older anesthesiologist raised his hand. "I say we do it, but let's never forget why we started. This is not a business, it is justice." Mary felt a lump in her throat. "Okay, we will do it, but we will do it right." And so the Healthcare Bridge program stopped being a small project and became something bigger, something that would have the power to change an entire system. But Mary knew the real challenge was just beginning. The program's office moved to a larger space in the same Miller Farmer building. Now there were 4 coordinators besides Mary, a legal team of 2 lawyers and 3 administrative assistants. The white walls were filled with maps of the US with colored markers: green for collaborating hospitals, blue for active candidates, red for areas without coverage. Mary felt overwhelmed. She could no longer personally meet every candidate. She could no longer answer every call. There were meetings with bureaucrats, presentations with investors, calls with hospital directors who never finished making a decision. One morning, while reviewing a management report she did not fully understand, there was a knock on the door. It was Clara. "Do you have a minute?" "Sure." Clara closed the door and sat in front of her. "I see you exhausted." "I'm fine." "No, you're not. And it's normal. You've gone from being a person to being an institution. That has a cost." Mary sighed. "Sometimes I feel I'm losing the way, that this is turning into what we didn't want it to be." "And what did you want it to be?" "Something human, something where every person mattered." Clara nodded. "Do you know what makes you different from other directors of social programs? That you lived what they live. That is your compass. As long as you don't lose it, you'll be fine. And if you feel you're losing it, delegate the technical stuff and go back to the field." "How?" "Make visits. Meet the new candidates. Remind yourself why you started this. The paperwork can wait. The people cannot." Mary followed the advice. Every week she set aside 2 days for visits. She went to Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami. She met dozens of professionals: a midwife who had lost her job after reporting bad practices in her hospital, a radiology technician who fell into alcoholism after a divorce, a nurse who emigrated from South America and couldn't get her degree recognized. Every story was different, every pain unique, but all shared something: the need to be seen, for someone to believe in them. And Mary saw them, all of them. In a visit to Philadelphia, she met a man named Manuel. He was 65 years old, had been a palliative care nurse for 30 years. They fired him when he developed essential tremor in his hands. "No one wants me anymore," he said with sadness. "They say I am a risk." Mary observed him. His hands trembled, yes, but with subtlety. Nothing that prevented non-invasive tasks. "Have you considered teaching? You have 3 decades of experience. You could train others." Manuel's eyes lit up. "I never thought of that." 3 weeks later, Manuel started as an instructor in a nursing assistant training program. He didn't give injections, but he taught how to do it. He didn't heal wounds, but he taught how to care for them. When Mary received the message from Manuel thanking her, she cried in her office. James entered and found her like that. "Bad news?" "No," she said, wiping her tears. "Good, very good." But not everything was success. There was a case that marked her deeply. Her name was Lucy, 28 years old, emergency technician. She had suffered assaults from patients on 2 occasions until she developed post-traumatic stress. No emergency service would hire her. Mary worked tirelessly on her case. She found a hospital willing to give her a chance in the outpatient area, without emergencies, without pressure. Lucy accepted. She started. But in the 2nd week, she quit. "I can't," she said to her on the phone, crying. Every time I see an ambulance, I paralyze. It's not your fault, Mary. It's me. I'm broken. Mary tried to convince her to look for psychological help, not to give up. But Lucy hung up and didn't answer messages again. That night, Mary arrived home and collapsed. Robert called her, worried because she had missed an important meeting. "I couldn't go," she said. "I needed to be alone." "What happened?" "I lost someone. Lucy, the emergency technician. She gave up." "You didn't lose her. She decided to stop. You can't save everyone, Mary." "I know, but it hurts the same." "That's how it is. And it will keep hurting, because you care. But for every Lucy, there are 20 Patricias, 20 Manuels. Don't lose sight of that." Mary knew Robert was right, but the weight of the failures was heavier than the lightness of the successes. Still, she moved forward. 6 months after the national launch of the program, Mary was invited to a public health congress in Boston. It was a big event, with authorities, academics, and hospital managers. She would present the results of the Healthcare Bridge program before hundreds of professionals. She arrived nervous. She hated speaking in public. James accompanied her for moral support. "Breathe. You've done it before." Not before so many people. The room was full. Mary went up to the stage with sweaty hands. She began to speak, showing data, cases, results. Her voice trembled at first, but it became steady. She spoke of Patricia, of Manuel, of the 22 who became 143 reintegrated professionals. When she finished, the applause was long. Several people approached afterward to congratulate her, to ask for information. But among the crowd, Mary saw a face that left her frozen. Dr. Harold Sterling. The doctor who had signed the initial report accusing her of negligence at Hopkins, the man whose words had destroyed her career. He approached her with an uncomfortable expression. "Mary." She did not answer immediately. She stayed looking at him, feeling how old wounds opened. "Dr. Sterling, I wanted to congratulate you. Your presentation was impressive." "Thank you." An uncomfortable silence. "Mary, I wanted to apologize. For what happened? I was under pressure. The family threatened to sue the hospital. They needed someone responsible, and I was the easiest to sacrifice," Mary finished. "Because I was a technician, not a doctor. Because I didn't have connections. Because I was expendable." Sterling lowered his gaze. "Yes, and it was cowardly of me. I've thought about it many times. If it's worth anything, the baby died of a congenital heart malformation that no one could have predicted. It wasn't your fault. It never was." Mary felt anger, sadness, but also something like relief. Knowing that it was never her fault, hearing it from the person who accused her, gave her a closure she didn't know she needed. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because seeing you up there, leading this, made me feel even more ashamed. I destroyed your career and you rebuilt it by helping others. I just stayed a coward who signs papers." Mary took a deep breath. "I don't do it for you. I do it for me. And for them. But I thank you for the honesty, even if it arrives late." She turned to leave, but Sterling stopped her. "If I can ever help the program, anything, I will do it. It's the least I can do." Mary nodded without looking at him and left. James was waiting for her outside. "Are you okay?" "Yes, I think so." That night, alone in her hotel room, Mary wrote in her journal, something she had started doing by recommendation of a therapist she had finally accepted to visit. "Today, the person who destroyed me apologized. It doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't return the 3 lost years, but it closes something. And it reminds me that this was never about revenge. It was about dignity, about demonstrating that we can fall and still be valuable, not for what others say about us, but for what we know about ourselves." She closed the journal and fell asleep more peacefully than she had been in years. The program reached its first anniversary, with results that exceeded expectations. 280 reintegrated professionals, agreements with 43 hospitals, and a waiting list of more than 500 people. Robert organized a celebration event at the Miller Pharma offices. He invited press, authorities, and most importantly, all the professionals who had passed through the program. Mary did not want speeches or protagonism, but Robert insisted. "It's your moment. Enjoy it." The room was full. Mary went up to the small stage with trembling legs. She looked at the faces. Patricia, Manuel, the older anesthesiologist, the young mother, so many lives touched. "I am not good with speeches," she began. "So I will be brief. A year ago I cleaned floors. Today I coordinate a program that has changed lives. But it wasn't I who changed those lives. It was you. Everyone who decided not to give up, who accepted a second chance, who put on a uniform again. You are the program. I only opened doors. You crossed them." The applause was deafening. After the event, while people chatted with glasses of champagne, a journalist approached Mary. "I am Laura Mendez from the New York Times. Can I ask you some questions?" "Sure." "I've researched your story, the suspension at Hopkins. How do you feel having turned your greatest failure into this?" Mary reflected. "I don't see it as a failure. It was an injustice. Failures are when we do things wrong. They did wrong to me. There is a difference. Do you hold a grudge?" "I did. But a grudge is heavy and I needed my hands free to build." The interview was published a week later. It was the cover in the Society section. The headline said, "From Domestic Worker to Social Leader, the story of Mary Smith." The article was honest, moving. It spoke of her past without sensationalism. It showed the program with respect. And it ended with a phrase from Mary. "Dignity is not lost when you fall. It is lost when you give up." The reactions were immediate. The program's phone didn't stop ringing. Hundreds of professionals wanted to enroll. Dozens of hospitals wanted to collaborate. There were even calls from other countries asking if the model could be replicated. But among all the messages, there was one that stood out. It was from the General Director of Johns Hopkins Hospital. "Dear Ms. Smith, I have read about your work, and I would like to meet with you. I believe there is a pending conversation that we should have had 3 years ago. Sincerely, Dr. Beatrice Moore." Mary read the message 3 times. Hopkins, the place where everything began, the place where everything collapsed. "What do I do?" she asked Robert. "You go, you listen, and you decide if it's worth it." The meeting was a week later, in the director's office. Beatrice Moore was a woman about 55 years old, grey hair, direct gaze. "Thank you for coming. I know it must not be easy to come back here." "It isn't. I have reviewed your file, complete. The accusation never had a real basis. The suspension was a political decision, not medical, and it was unfair." "I know. That's why I want to offer you something. I cannot return the 3 lost years, but I can offer you complete professional rehabilitation, clear your file, and if you wish, a position as training supervisor in our nursing area." Mary was left without words. "Why now?" "Because your program demonstrates that the system fails valuable people, and because if we initiated that failure with you, we must repair it. And if I say no, that I no longer need Hopkins, then I will respect your decision. This is not conditioned. The rehabilitation of your file will happen anyway. The position is only if you want it." Mary looked through the window. She saw the hospital building, the hallways she had walked thousands of times. The memories hurt, but they no longer destroyed her. "I need to think about it." "Of course." Upon leaving, Mary walked through the hospital hallways. She passed by the neonatal ICU. She stopped in front of the windows where tiny babies fought to live. A nurse recognized her. "Mary, is it you?" It was Lucy Ortega, a colleague from years ago. "Lucy, long time." They hugged. "I've read everything about you. I am so proud. I always knew you were special. Why didn't anyone say anything when they suspended me?" Lucy lowered her gaze. "We were afraid of losing our jobs. It was selfish. I'm sorry." Mary nodded. "I would have been afraid too." They said goodbye with another hug, and Mary knew what she had to do. Mary took 2 weeks to respond to Dr. Moore, not because she had doubts, but because she needed the decision to be absolutely clear. Finally, she asked for a meeting. "Thank you for the offer," she said, "but I am not going to accept the position at Hopkins." The director seemed surprised. Can I ask why? Because my place is no longer here. My place is in the program, helping others who are where I was. Returning to Hopkins would be closing a circle. But I don't need to close it. What I need is to open paths for others. I understand the rehabilitation of your file. I accept that, not for me, but because I want it to be clear. I was never guilty. And maybe that will help someone else in the future. Dr. Moore nodded with respect. It will be made official, and Mary, for what it's worth, I am sorry for what we did to you. I was sorry too, for a long time. But now I am at peace. Leaving Hopkins, Mary felt something she didn't expect. Gratitude. Not for what they did to her, but for what she built from it. Back in the office, she called her team. We have to expand more. We need to reach rural areas, professionals who don't even know that programs like this exist. We need to be more visible. Clara smiled. Are you sure? That means more work, more pressure. I'm sure. Because now I know why I am here. The following months were intense. The program opened regional offices in California, Texas, and Florida. Mary traveled constantly, meeting teams, training coordinators, giving talks. In one of those talks in a health center in a small town in Georgia, a young woman approached her at the end. I'm a nurse. Well, I was. I had to leave my job because my mother is sick and I couldn't balance it. I've been 2 years without working. Do you think I still have a chance? Mary took her hands. Of course you do. Give me your information. We are going to find something that fits your situation. The young woman cried with relief, and Mary understood that this would never end, that there would always be someone else who needed help, and that she would be there to give it to them. 18 months after the start of the program, Mary was nominated for the National Social Solidarity Award. The ceremony would be at the Department of Labor, with the presence of authorities and media. Mary did not want to go. I don't feel comfortable with that, she told Robert. It's not about you. It's about making the program visible and about inspiring others. And if I say something stupid, you will say what you always say, the truth. The night of the ceremony, Mary arrived in a simple dress that Sarah had helped her choose. The room was full of elegant people, pompous speeches, measured applause. When they announced her name, Mary went up to the stage with her heart in her throat. The secretary handed her the award, a glass plaque, and gave her the floor. Mary looked at the audience. She took a deep breath. 2 years ago, I cleaned bathrooms, not because I didn't have knowledge, but because someone decided that my word was worth less than a lie. And for 3 years I believed that was my life now. That was my place, until a baby cried in a way that I recognized, and I had to decide. Do I stay silent not to bother, or do I say what I know even if no one listens to me? I spoke, and they listened to me. And that baby today is alive. This award is not mine. It belongs to all the professionals who have gone through unfair situations and still did not give up. It belongs to those who keep believing they can matter, and it is to tell anyone who is cleaning floors today, even if they have a doctorate in their soul, your value is not decided by who employs you. You decide it. Every day that you get up, every day that you don't give up. The applause was long and sincere. That night, the media published her speech. It went viral. Thousands of people shared it with messages of support, similar stories, thanks. But the message that mattered most to her was one from Patricia. Thank you for showing me that falling is not the end. It's just the beginning of something else. Mary cried reading it. Good tears. The kind that clean. The next day she returned to the office. Nothing had changed. She was still the same, but now she knew her story mattered. Not only for her, but for all those who would come after. 2.5 years after the day Mary detected Liam's hydrocephalus, she received a formal invitation by mail. A thick paper envelope with the Miller Vance letterhead. Inside, a card handwritten by Sarah. Mary, we would love for you to join us for dinner this Saturday. Not as a professional, not as a coordinator, as family. Please, say yes. Sarah, Robert, And Liam. Mary held the card for several minutes. Family. That word she had longed for so much when she cleaned those same floors, invisible, non-existent. Saturday arrived with a golden sunset over New York. Mary dressed with care, black dress pants, a navy blue blouse, comfortable but elegant shoes, nothing flashy. She was still herself. When she arrived in the Hamptons, she rang the front doorbell, not the back one, never again the back one. Sarah opened the door with a genuine smile, dressed simply, without the perfect makeup from before. More human, more real. Mary, welcome, what a joy to see you. They hugged. A real hug, not a courtesy one. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for coming. The house was still impressive, but now Mary saw it differently. The marbles and high ceilings no longer intimidated her. They were just walls. What mattered was the people inside. Liam appeared running from the living room, with a dinosaur t-shirt and pants stained with paint. Seeing Mary, his eyes lit up. Auntie Mary. He threw himself into her arms and she carried him, feeling his weight, his warmth, his pulsing life. This child she had held in her hands when he was just a trembling bundle was now a whirlwind of energy. Look what I drew, Liam said, showing her a wrinkled paper with colored scribbles. It's an astronaut, like me when I'm big. It's beautiful, Mary said with a lump in her throat. You're going to be an incredible astronaut. Robert came out of the kitchen with an apron on, something unthinkable years ago. He had flour on his cheek. Mary, just in time. I'm trying to make pasta from scratch. It could be a disaster. She laughed. I'm sure it's delicious. The dinner was simple, warm. Pasta that indeed was a bit raw, salad, bread, wine. But there were laughs, genuine conversations, shared stories. Liam talked without stopping about his daycare, about his friends, about his teacher who had the same name as Mary. At one point, Sarah touched Mary's hand on the table. You know, now I understand what I didn't see before. When I looked at you and only saw the maid, I was missing a person. And by missing you, I was missing myself. Because no one who treats others like that can be okay with themselves. Mary felt the weight of those words. I also learned something, that my value never depended on you seeing me. It was always there. I just had to remember it. After dinner, while Liam played in the living room, they went to Robert's study. He opened a folder. I want to show you this before it's official. The board of Miller Pharma approved a $3 million investment to expand the program to Latin America. Colombia, Mexico, Argentina. We want you to lead the expansion. Mary felt vertigo. It's a lot. And you deserve every opportunity, Robert said. But I'm not asking you to decide now. I just want you to know that I trust you, that I believe in what you do, and if you decide no, we will look for someone else, but no one will do it like you. Mary looked through the study window. She saw the lit garden, the lights of other houses in the distance. She thought of her apartment in Queens, of her roommates, of the path traveled. Can I ask you something? She said. Why do you keep doing this? You already paid your moral debt to me, if you ever had one. Liam is fine. You could simply go on with your life. Robert stayed thoughtful. Because that day when I saw you holding my son, I saw something I hadn't seen in years working in health. I saw someone who really cared. Not for money, not for recognition, because she couldn't not care. And I realized how many people like that the system had lost. That's why I continue. Because if we saved Liam, how many more can we save by saving people like you? Mary nodded, with tears threatening to escape. I'm going to think about it. The expansion. Give me a few days. Take all the time you need. Before leaving, Mary went to say goodbye to Liam. He was in his room building a tower of blocks. Are you leaving already, Auntie Mary? Yes, little one, but I'll see you soon. My mom says you saved me when I was a baby. Mary knelt at his height. You also saved me, you know. You reminded me what my hands are for. Liam hugged her with that excessive force that children have. I love you, Auntie Mary. And I love you, champion. Leaving the house, Mary decided to walk to the train station instead of ordering a taxi. She needed air. She needed to process. The Hampton streets were silent, elegant, lit by streetlights that cast soft shadows. Her phone vibrated. A message from Patricia. "Mary, remember I told you my dream was to work in neonatology? Today they offered me a position at Hopkins, in the ICU where you worked. I'm going to accept, and every time I walk in there, I'm going to think of you." Mary had to stop. She leaned against a tree and let the tears fall. They weren't tears of sadness, they were of fulfillment. A feeling that her story, with all its pain, had served for something beautiful. Another message arrived, from Manuel, the nurse with essential tremor. "Tomorrow I give my first class at the university. They invited me as a guest professor. A year ago I thought my life had ended. Thank you for showing me it was only beginning another stage." And another one, from the young mother who had been fired. "My daughter turns 2 tomorrow, and I complete a year at my job. Both of us growing together. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." Mary put away her phone and kept walking. She thought of Lucy, the emergency technician who had given up. She thought of all those she couldn't save. But she also thought of the 200, the 300, the 500, who did find their way. She couldn't save them all, but she could try. And that attempt in itself was already worth everything. When she finally arrived at her apartment in Queens, it was almost midnight. Her roommates were sleeping. She sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and opened her journal. She wrote, "Today I had dinner at the house where I was invisible, but this time they saw me, not because I have changed, but because they learned to look. And I learned that I never needed them to see me to exist. I was always here. I was always valuable. I just had to remember it. Tomorrow I will start planning the expansion to Latin America, because there are thousands of Marys out there, and if I could get up, they can too. Not with my help. With their own strength. I will only be the bridge. They will walk." She closed the journal and looked through the window of her small kitchen. The lights of Queens flickered in the night. Modest buildings, simple lives, people fighting every day. This was still her world, and it always would be. Because the real victory was not living in the Hamptons. It was remembering every morning that her value never depended on where she lived, who employed her, or what title she had on a wall. Her value was in her hands that knew how to care, in her eyes that knew how to see, in her heart that never stopped caring, and that no suspension, no humiliation, no cold marble could ever take from her. Mary Smith was no longer the maid. She was the woman who transformed her fall into the bridge so that others would not fall so deep. And when they fell, they would know they could get up, because she had done it. And if she could, anyone could.